Today we're going to move on to the next steps with our self-portrait head. For the last couple of videos I showed you guys how to make the basic form of your head, and then we covered it really well with a couple of plastic bags. Hopefully you did that so the clay is still nice and soft. Today and this week we're going to be doing the features of the piece. I recommend having a couple photographs of yourself. They don't have to be as goofy as this, but come up with some possible expressions that you might consider doing. You probably notice as you take it out of the bag, the clay is a little moist on the surface. The water in the clay tries to evaporate out, and when it does, it hits the bag, and then so you'll find just when you open it, the bag's a little moist. So if you put a little piece of clay or newspaper underneath the chin, you can probably remove that at this point. You have a packet that comes from the book from Philippe Farreau, and the first step on page 104, you can see we're going to start to do the eyes. The eyes are located right in the center of the face. So if you think about it, the top part and the bottom part should be about the same size. A lot of people like to have a pre-measurement. Okay, so that's about my midpoint right here. And the eyes are going to fall right on that or just slightly above. And then a lot of artists also like to have a center line. The way I like to do it is I like to take my two thumbs and I like to start in. Now don't push in too deep, because if you push in too deep, you're just going to have to add. Now we're going to take what we have here and we're going to start to create the bridge of the nose here. So you're going to push in just a little bit here. Your forehead is going to be higher than the very top of your nose in most cases. Okay, so you can kind of define that out and start to build up the nose at this point. When you're adding clay at this point, the clay is dried a little bit. So I'm going to want to apply some slip to the surface before I add the clay. The easiest way to make slip is you just take a little dry clay and you dissolve it in a little water. If you didn't pick up a slip jar from the classroom. The drier the clay, the faster it'll dissolve and faster it'll make slip. When you apply slip to the surface, you're going to scratch it up a little bit. Okay? And then you'll start to build up that nose form. Some of you may be wondering, like, how big is my nose? Well, on my head, I did 4 inches to the top of the brow and then 4 inches on the top. And the nose is going to hang down about 2 inches. So half of this distance is going to be the nose. So you can start to build that in. Okay. And the nose is probably your easiest feature to build. Think about the slope of it. You know, do you have sort of a ski run nose? Is it more of a straight run down? Thinking about creating the ball of the nose, how wide are your nostrils, things like that. Usually do the eyes after the nose. Like to get the nose is sort of, I feel like the nose sort of grounds the whole face. And so if you can get that more or less correct, then the rest of the face comes along pretty quickly. Okay, so I lean the head on its back so that you guys can see this. When you're making the nose, you're going to need to do the nostrils. In order to do the nostrils, I recommend either a pencil or this is one of those metal needle tools. If you have one of those, the back of a paintbrush can work fine depending on the size that you have. This piece of cartilage first, and then that's the centerpiece. And then in terms of the nostrils, I want to think about using this tool. Nostrils have a sort of a teardrop shape. Good nose form, unless you do the nostrils. So I usually do those fairly soon into the process. Try to make them more or less equal. Typically doing, looking at the base of your nose, But this is, in order to get the nose correct, you need to really look at the nostrils. You really need to look at this part. So this is also a really good point where you could use the ZM tools to do the nostrils. The tools that I would use for this particular part, one would be this ZM tool that has sort of a concave area on the inside is very, very helpful. And of course your wood modeling tool. What you're going to try to do is you're going to try to define the nostril. And the way I do that is I generally take the wood modeling tool and I'm just very gently tapping that. And so as you can see from the side, defining that out, trying to get the correct curvature. Okay, and take your time. This is the fun part, and the fun part if you take your time. If you rush through it, you'll feel like it's not looking good. Same thing on the other side. So 108 is adding the top barrel of the mouth. And this will make sense because right now it seems like, wow, the nose is really popping out. Well, that's because I haven't added the mouth yet. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put some slip, score it up a little bit, and you might kind of feel like you're adding a mustache in a way. Okay, I'm going to put a little more slip. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and insert the top lip onto the face. Okay, and like I say, it probably feels like a big mustache right this second. All right, so this is the next tool I'm going to use. I'm going to use this wood modeling tool. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to clean that up and start to make it align. All right. As I look at that, it looks a little bit big, so I may have to trim it down. But I want to get it on there and then make my adjustments. Everything's a relationship. So from the nostril to the cheek, the nostril to the top lip, okay, you're looking at how things fit in that space. The lip itself has different planes. So this is one plane, this is one plane, and then the lip itself, you need to push up to divide that plane. Okay, and yes, it does look a little bit big. Good way to trim, if you put too much like I did, is you can just take a fettling knife and trim it a little bit. And just pay attention that you're doing both sides pretty evenly. Okay, so you're kind of doing something like that. All right, that's a little bit better. It's still protruding a little bit more than I want it to. So I will probably let it dry a little bit, flatten it down, or trim it a little bit more. Once the top lip is established, you're going to go in and put the bottom lip. Okay, so you need to play around with this a little bit. And I want to upturn it just a little bit, so this should be up a little bit more here. All right. The bottom lip is, generally speaking, a little bit fatter and a little bit more, not quite as wide. So it's usually something in that kind of a zone. And we'll take a look at that and then see how it looks. It's a little big to me. Okay, pretty flat expression right now, but let me go ahead and see if I can get that to go in. I'm not loving this upper lip. It seems like it's popping out too much. This part here, I want it to come towards the face a little bit more. Even though I'm thinking about doing sort of this pursed lip, it definitely has sort of that slope is a little different. So now's your adjustment phase, and you can use a variety of tools. I love the fettling knife for doing planes because you can do a whole flat plane with that. I love the ZM tool for doing these divots and things, adjustments. wood modeling tool to get in there. Okay, this is really important. Down here at the bottom lip, this part actually pushes in, and I put a little water on there so that was bad because it's making it sticky. Let it dry a little bit and do that again. Okay, I'm gonna have to play around with that a little bit. And I'm probably gonna have to remove a little clay there to get it defined. So I thought what I would show you, for those of you who'd like to have a slightly open mouth, I'm going to open up and drop the lip a little bit before I add the chin. So when you do this, sometimes you may end up having to do the lip again, but I want to leave the top lip alone pretty much. I drop that lip down just a little bit. And this is where I'm going to put my teeth. You've either got to push in really hard or you've got to remove some clay. Now, my general recommendation is to see if you can push it in. It's a little easier, I think. I want to do the teeth, and then I'll push the lip back up on top of that. So, trying to make them even. As I look at my expression, my mouth comes up and in here. If you want to do an open mouth or a slightly open mouth, you can play. So we're kind of here on page 111. I may have to paddle it in a little bit. Apply some slip because I'm going to add a big old chunk of clay there. Score it a little bit. A little ball of clay is plenty. In fact, this may even be too much, but let's start with this and then see. Yeah, that's probably a little bit too much. Got a full-on goatee there. Add a little piece. It should protrude out. Okay, and you want to think about the form there. What I want you guys again to do this week: nose, cheeks, lips, and chin. All right, before I put my piece away for today, sometimes it's nice to just come through and with a sponge do a little moisten up. You don't want to ever over wet it. Okay, just adding a little moisture to the surface is nice. I'm just using a little slip and the sponge, just because since I'm working on this on a variety of days instead of doing it all on the same day. I don't want to come back the next time and have to really rework. So I'm adding a little level of moisture, and the bottom is where it gets really dry. A wood rib works really well at this area. Sometimes I scrape a little of the clay off. Every time you take the bag off, I want to at least touch every part a little bit, like moisten a little bit before I cover it up. When you put it away today, you're going to double bag, put 2 bags on it. On my board, so that makes it super easy. It's really important that you tie a knot, put a piece of wire